You're standing in Target with a $12 candle in your hand doing mental arithmetic that would impress a CPA. Not because you're cheap, not because you don't like candles, because $12 is a specific percentage of a specific number, and that percentage determines whether the rest of the week works. You make $42,000 a year, which puts you above roughly 35% of American workers, and the candle is still a decision that requires actual math. Now picture someone else, different state, same age, same work ethic, who bought a couch last month because the old one annoyed her, didn't finance it, didn't save for it, just decided and bought it and moved on with her life like furniture is a casual Thursday purchase. These are not two people experiencing different degrees of comfort. These are two people living in completely separate economic realities, and the distance between them is not some vague unfairness. It is a specific calculable income point where everything changes. Researchers have measured it. Economists have named it. My name is Sarah, and today we are going to find exactly where that line is and what happens on both sides of it. But before we map what money actually buys at each level, we need to establish where most people actually stand because Americans are shockingly bad at locating themselves on the income spectrum, and that confusion is expensive. Right now, the median household income in the United States sits at $80,610. That is not one person killing it at work. That is every earning adult in the home combined. The median individual worker pulling full-time hours earns about $59,000. So when a couple says we are comfortable, we pull in six figures together, they are describing something that is almost exactly average. Not struggling, not rich, just statistically middle. Pew Research categorizes roughly 29% of American households as low income, meaning under $52,000 total. Middle class spans from about $78,000 to $130,000. Only around 11% of households break $240,000. And here is the number that every personal finance influencer conveniently ignores. 43.2% of American households now earn over $100,000 a year. That sounds like nearly half the country is doing great, until you actually run the cost of living math in real cities with real expenses and realize that $100,000 in San Francisco is a completely different organism than $100,000 in Wichita, Kansas. SmartAsset crunched the numbers. A $100,000 salary in New York City has the actual purchasing power of $35,791 after adjusting for cost of living. You read that right. $35,000, same paycheck, different zip code, completely different life. So the question we are actually answering today is not what does your income say about you. It is this: at what exact point does money stop controlling you and start working for you instead? Let's walk through it step by step. Meet Jessica. She is 27. She works as an administrative coordinator for a nonprofit in the outskirts of Phoenix. She makes $41,000 a year. After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and her health insurance premium, she takes home about $2,590 a month. That is the entire canvas. Now let's watch it disappear. Rent comes first because rent does not negotiate. A one-bedroom apartment in a decent part of the Phoenix suburbs costs about $1,150 a month. Gone. Jessica has not eaten a single meal yet. Utilities including air conditioning, which is not optional in Arizona, $190. Jessica needs a car because Phoenix is not a place where you can bus to work and keep a professional job. Car payment on a used sedan, $320. Insurance and gas, $280. Groceries on the USDA modest plan because Jessica is not buying organic anything, $340. Phone and internet because you cannot apply to jobs, respond to work emails, or function in 2025 without them, $115. Health insurance employee contribution, $140. Student loan payment on income-driven repayment, $280. Total monthly expenses, $2,815. Monthly take-home, $2,590. Jessica is $225 in the red every single month before she has paid for laundry detergent, a haircut, or her best friend's wedding she is supposed to attend in 2 months. This is not a budgeting failure. This is mathematics rejecting reality. Here is what this feels like in actual human terms, and I need you to really sit in this. It feels like adding items to your cart on Amazon, and then closing the tab because just looking made you anxious. It feels like saying you are not really into brunch when your friends make plans, because that is easier than explaining that $18 for eggs is a financial event you need 3 days to prepare for. It feels like checking your bank account before you buy gas, and doing the math on whether you can get to work on a quarter tank until Friday. And here is what nobody tells you about being Jessica. The financial system has a special price list just for her. Overdraft fees target people who cannot keep a buffer. Check cashing stores charge 5% to people who cannot wait for a deposit to clear. Furniture rental companies extract triple the retail cost from people who cannot pay up front. In America, the less money you have, the more expensive it is to exist. That is not a market failure. That is the market working exactly as designed. And Jessica is their ideal customer. Let's say Jessica works hard, switches jobs twice, and 5 years later she is earning $68,000 a year. Her monthly take-home climbs to about $4,420. For the first time in her adult life, the budget is not immediately broken. She breathes. Except rent has increased because she moved somewhere safer. $1,400 now. Car payment on something that does not require monthly prayer, $425. Insurance and gas, $310. Groceries upgraded from survivalist to reasonable human, $400. Student loans still exactly as annoying, $380. Health insurance, $145. Phone and internet, $120. Discretionary spending, gym membership, occasional takeout, one streaming service she actually uses. $280. Total expenses. $3,460. Monthly surplus. $960. If Jessica is smart, and she is, because she remembers what $225 in the hole every month felt like, she puts $340 into her 401k to get the employer match. That leaves $620 a month for savings. At that rate, a 3-month emergency fund of about $10,400 takes roughly 17 months to build, assuming nothing breaks, no one gets sick, and the universe takes a vacation. It will not. Here is what financial stability feels like at $68,000. It feels like finally not holding your breath every time you check your account, and then your tire blows out and the breath holding comes right back. It feels like people congratulating you on doing well while you are quietly aware that one surprise medical bill, one sudden job loss, one furnace replacement in winter resets everything to zero. It feels like you have been upgraded from actively drowning to frantically treading water, while everyone on the shore yells about how great you are doing. The tire costs $640 to replace. Jessica has $620 of surplus per month. She can cover it in 1 month if she stops saving entirely. So the credit card comes out, not because Jessica is reckless, because the margin is so thin that a single deviation from perfection shatters the math. Here is who profits at this exact income level. Credit card companies charging 26% APR on the balance Jessica just had to carry because her emergency fund is not finished yet. The system does not care that Jessica got a raise. It just recalibrated the trap. Jessica grinds. She switches companies again. She negotiates aggressively. Now she is at $105,000, $6 figures, the psychological finish line everyone treats like a rival. Monthly take-home roughly $6,440. That is $2,020 more per month than at $68,000. Let's pause here because this deserves attention. Jessica got a $37,000 raise. A $37,000 increase in gross income. After federal taxes, state taxes, and FICA finished with it, her $37,000 raise became $2,020 a month. That is the actual value of a massive raise. About $2,000 a month. Remember that. Now the budget. A nice 2-bedroom apartment or a small house in a mid-tier cost area. $1,900. Utilities. $210. Car payment something newer, reliable, not embarrassing. $480. Insurance and gas. $340. Solid groceries. $450. Phone and internet. $125. Health insurance. $155. Student loans. $420. Actual life. Gym, restaurants, weekend trips existing like a full human. $520. Total. $4,600. Remaining. $1,840 a month. Put 12% into the 401k. That is $1,050 a month. Jessica has $790 left over. A 6-month emergency fund takes 9 months to build. She can handle a financial surprise without spiraling. She can decline plans because she does not feel like going, not because she cannot afford it. Here is what $105,000 actually buys, and it is more specific than anyone admits. It is the first morning Jessica wakes up and does not immediately calculate days until payday. That is not a small shift. That is the entire product she has been chasing. The absence of constant low-grade financial panic is itself a kind of wealth most people never touch. But here is the twist: Jessica is not wealthy. Not even close. Maxing out her 401k at $23,500 a year would cost $1,958 a month. Her total surplus after basic expenses is $1,840. She cannot max retirement and save for anything else simultaneously. Something always has to break. And if Jessica lives somewhere real like Boston or LA or Seattle, that $1,900 rent is actually $3,200, and we are back underwater in a nicer neighborhood. A $105,000 salary is like being a strong swimmer in a river. You are not drowning anymore. You can make real forward progress, but you are still swimming hard and the current is still fighting you. Jessica lands a director-level role. $160,000 a year. Monthly take-home approximately $9,180. Now watch what happens when the math stops being violent. Mortgage on an actual house. $2,400. Utilities. $260. Car payment comfortable but not flashy. $580. Insurance and gas. $370. Quality groceries. $520. Phone and internet. $135. Health insurance. $165. Student loans finally almost done. $420. Real discretionary spending. Vacations, nice dinners, hobbies, being alive. $1,100. Total. $5,950. Remaining. $3,230 every single month. Jessica can now max her 401k at $1,958 a month, fully fund a Roth IRA, and still have over $700 left to invest in a taxable brokerage account. She can build a 6-month emergency fund in under 5 months. She can say yes without checking anything first. The entire decision-making framework shifts from "can I afford this" to "I actually want this." That is not a minor upgrade. That is the whole point of everything. Here is the data that actually matters. Research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that households in the bottom 60% of income distribution have negative or near zero savings rates, meaning 60% of American households spend everything they earn or more when you include debt accumulation. Only the top 40% consistently save. Real wealth building savings, the kind that compounds into actual financial independence, does not start in any meaningful way until household income reaches about $120,000 to $160,000. Think about it like this. At $41,000, every dollar Jessica earns is like a mayfly. It appears briefly and dies before reproduction. At $160,000 for the first time, some of the dollars live long enough to multiply. That is compounding. That is the entire mechanism, and you cannot access it until you have margin. You cannot have margin until fixed costs stop eating everything. And fixed costs stop eating everything somewhere right here. This is the threshold. Not $75,000, not the mythical six-figure mark. $160,000 is where Jessica stops trading time for survival and starts trading time for options. And the compounding from this point is not subtle. A 36-year-old who maxes a 401k and invests another $800 a month into a boring index fund is looking at roughly $2.4 million by age 65. Not from brilliance, not from luck. From having enough margin to let time do the work and not letting lifestyle inflation devour the surplus before the automation starts. Here is the part that made me stop and reread the research 3 times. A Goldman Sachs survey on paycheck-to-paycheck living across income brackets found something nobody expected. Among households earning $200,000 to $300,000, only 18% live paycheck-to-paycheck. That is the most financially stable income band in America. Then you look at households earning $300,000 to $500,000. The paycheck-to-paycheck rate jumps back up to 38%. Above $500,000, it is 42%, almost identical to households earning under $50,000. Let that actually register. People making $500,000 a year and people making $47,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck at nearly the same rate. The top and bottom of the income ladder are mirror images in the one metric that measures actual financial stress. This is not about income. This is about lifestyle inflation, the silent automatic force that expands to consume every dollar no matter how many dollars there are. At $47,000, you spend everything because survival requires it. At $500,000, you spend everything because your brain has silently reclassified a $5,200 mortgage, $1,800 in car payments, $38,000 annual private school tuition per child, and a $4,000 a month vacation property as normal. What people like us do. Making $500,000 and having nothing left is like running a marathon and finishing at the start line, except you are exhausted, broke, and your Audi needs service. The $200,000 to $300,000 sweet spot is where income has temporarily outpaced the lifestyle arms race. There is margin before spending has caught up. It is the brief window between enough and a luxury version of not enough. And here is what should genuinely unsettle you. A study from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia found that when someone in a neighborhood wins the lottery, their neighbor's bankruptcy rates increase. The mechanism is visible wealth triggers visible spending. More income does not automatically generate security. It generates a higher baseline of spending required to feel normal. And that baseline rises faster than most people can process. At $270,000, Jessica's monthly take-home is about $15,120. The math is now absurdly in her favor on paper. Mortgage on a genuinely beautiful home, $3,200. Car payment something nice that she enjoys, $720. Premium groceries the kind where vegetables look like the pictures, $580. Serious discretionary spending, travel, experiences, luxury, $2,800. Charitable giving because Jessica remembers every version of herself, $600. Total, $8,900 remaining, $6,220 every month. Max the 401k, fund the Roth, contribute to a 529, invest the rest in index funds. Jessica is now investing about $72,000 a year. At 8% average returns, that is over $9.1 million in 30 years from basic set it and forget it investing. No stock tips, no crypto, no gimmicks, just margin and time. But the Goldman data does not care about good intentions. 42% of people at this income level live paycheck to paycheck because private school plus the lake house plus 2 luxury leases plus we only fly premium now also costs a lot of money. The number on the paycheck changes. The gap between income and spending does not have to change, but for 42% of high earners it does not. The trap just got larger, more comfortable, and much harder to see from inside it. Now here is the question almost nobody asks while chasing the next income level. What amount actually makes you happy? Not wealthy happy, just happy. Killingsworth and Kahneman, two researchers who publicly disagreed on this for years, published joint research in 2023 after combining datasets. They found that for roughly 80% of people, happiness continues rising with income indefinitely. No ceiling. More money equals more happiness all the way up. But for the unhappiest 20%, people dealing with major depression, grief, chronic illness, or relational trauma, happiness plateaus around $100,000. Beyond that, more money does not fix what is actually broken. You cannot spend your way out of a mental health crisis. You cannot budget your way out of a dying marriage. The suffering that remains at $500,000 is not the kind a bigger paycheck solves. Then there is this. Stanford researchers analyzing 1.4 billion tax records found that men in the richest 1% live 14.6 years longer than men in the poorest 1%. At age 40, a wealthy man statistically reaches 87. A poor man reaches 72. That is not quality of life. That is quantity of life. Financial stress is not just uncomfortable. It is lethal. And we have normalized it so completely it does not even register as a crisis anymore. So here is what all of this adds up to. The real threshold based on actual savings behavior and financial stability data is between $120,000 and $160,000 in household income depending on your location. Below that, the system runs you. Fixed costs consume everything, and you are perpetually one emergency away from catastrophe. Above that, you start running the system. Margin compounds. Compounding creates something resembling actual wealth. But the Goldman Sachs data tells the most important truth in this entire analysis. The threshold is a doorway, not a destination. Walking through it does not automatically make you secure. What makes you secure is keeping fixed costs below income and defending that gap while the difference accumulates in index funds for decades. The paycheck is not the variable. The gap is. And the gap is always a choice. Except at income levels where the math simply will not cooperate no matter how disciplined you are. That is what the system never admits. Below a certain point, the game is rigged. Above it, the only thing rigging it is you. Here is what I want you to do right now. Open your bank account, not later. Now, add up every fixed cost. Rent, car, insurance, loans, subscriptions, everything that exits your account whether you approve or not. Then look at your take-home pay. The gap between those two numbers is the only financial metric that matters. Everything else, the salary, the job title, the house, is set dressing. If that number made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort precedes change. If it surprised you positively, you are further ahead than you think. The people who build wealth are not the highest earners. They are the people who figured out early that financial security is not a number. It is a structure. And structure can be built at nearly any income level where math does not flatly refuse. Jessica started with a candle and some mental arithmetic. The question is what you start with and where you build from here.